Hi folks, this is my ventless gas heater. I'm running it on propane here in my rural Michigan homestead. I've got 7 tips for you guys, 7 tips for you guys who have or may be interested in acquiring a ventless gas heater at some point to heat your home, homestead, your barn, your workshop, your garage. These things can be a little finicky. They've got some big pluses and minuses, and I'm going to cover those briefly in my 7 tips. Number 1 is the ventless gas heater needs to be in a fairly clean room. They have trouble if they get dirty, if they get a little bit dusty, and having them in a clean room keeps them running at prime optimal condition for a lot longer. So keep the room clean, dusted and vacuumed as much as you can, and that'll keep your ventless gas heater running at its peak performance. Number 2 is you need to at times clean out the pilot orifice. Now these things are great, but almost everybody all of a sudden at some point can't get the thing turned on. All of a sudden you're using it and it'll start to shut off at random times and the pilot shuts out. Go down to Home Depot and talk to the guy working there. He'll tell you it's the thermocouple. 99 times it's not, because these have a different type of system that tends to get a little finicky. They're super finicky to anything changing in the burn rate and the air exchange coming through the pilot and gas tube. The pilot light is super finicky to any change in the burning rate and the mix of air mixing in with the propane or natural gas. If anything at all happens that causes it to be a little bit off in the slightest, it tends to shut right off. And that's a safety feature. So if this thing starts suddenly shutting off at random times, and you might even get bad enough that you can't even keep it going, you can't light the pilot and keep it going for more than a minute or two, then you need to clean it. That's pretty simple. I did a whole video on how to fix your ventless gas heater when it won't turn on. Go ahead and look for that. I explain it really well, and it doesn't take any special tools to clean this thing out at all. It's super simple. Go watch that video. Point number 3, if the pilot light ever starts to have a little yellow in it, if you notice that the pilot light's got a yellow tip, that means it's getting a little bit dusty and dirty in the pilot orifice, and you better start thinking about cleaning that out soon before the unit starts shutting off in the middle of the night and you wake up to a freezing home and frozen pipes like what I did last year. Thankfully I learned how to fix that, and you guys should definitely know how to do that if you're going to be using one of these to heat your home. So if the pilot light starts to look a little bit yellow in the tip, this thing's about ready to be cleaned. Point number 4 is another way you know that it's coming close to needing to be cleaned, is the blower. This unit's equipped with a blower on the back, and that blower does help to bring out a lot more heat. It circulates the heat, so I don't get all the heat way up top in the ceiling and then it's freezing down here. It keeps this air circulated, and it really does work great. Doesn't take much electricity to run that little blower fan, and it works great. It actually saves me a little on my heating bill. So when I turn that on, it causes a little bit extra updraft coming through the vents down here, which kind of disturbs the pilot light a little bit. Not enough to shut the unit off, but a little bit. Enough that if the pilot light's just a tad dirty already, and then I turn that blower on, it's very likely that the extra updraft caused by the blower is going to move the pilot light off of the thermocouple just enough to shut the whole unit off. So if you ever go and turn that blower on to go get a little extra heat to come out of this thing, circulate the air, then within a minute or so the unit shuts off. When you light it again and the blower comes on and it shuts off again, that means it needs to be cleaned. It's not bad enough to start necessarily showing yellow in the pilot or to start shutting off when the blower's not running, but if you turn the blower on and the unit shuts off, that means it needs to be cleaned. Next point is yellow flames. See the color of these flames? Mostly blue. Watch this. Whoa, it's like a magic show. What I did was stir up dust. These units burn very efficiently and they burn very hot in there. When dust gets in there and dust comes in through these vents down here, the air vents, dust gets in there and the dust burns up a little bit in the flames and causes that yellow. It's not necessarily a problem, but you don't really want to do it. too much. Yellow flames can be a instance of having air bubbles in your gas line, which that could potentially be a dangerous situation there. That could potentially be pretty bad there. But just, you're walking around moving, maybe you're vacuuming. That scares people a lot. They vacuum, then all of a sudden they see yellow flames. What happened? Probably nothing. You just stirred up some dust. Next point is the smell. You might notice at one point or another, running your ventless gas heater, all of a sudden the whole house smells like kerosene or old diesel fuel almost. And oh my goodness, is there some kind of problem in my gas line? Did I get a bad batch of propane? What's going on here? All that happened is somebody sprayed a petroleum-based aerosol. It doesn't necessarily have to be an aerosol. It can be something like a evaporating oil or evaporating petroleum-based cleaner, like some of my gun cleaners. My Hoppy's No. 9 gun cleaner will evaporate into the air, and those little particles that get into the air, well, they get sucked into the vent down here, and they burn up a little. Makes this strong kind of stout kerosene-like smell in the air that can last for a few hours to half the day. So if you are going to be spraying WD-40 or spray paint, anything like that, do it out in the garage, not in the house, unless you want everything to smell like you sprayed it down with kerosene. Even just something like painting the walls with paint can do that a little bit. So if you're going to be, if you're going to be painting per se, why don't you consider running a space heater or two for a few hours just to kind of dissipate that before you turn this heater back on and burn up any of the petroleum fumes, which will then just smell like strong kind of kerosene oiliness. The final down point that these units tend to have is moisture. They do tend to create moisture as an exhaust byproduct. Now that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. It usually becomes a problem if you are burning one of these units in a poorly insulated or very small area. If it's a very small, couple hundred square foot home or apartment, or it's poorly insulated, then you'll tend to get a lot of condensation. I've got some condensation on my windows up here right now, but it was also bath night, so that's half of it. But it can be an issue. I've heard of people who were using ventless gas heaters like this, and they had just kind of water dripping down some of their walls, and water all around the windowsills and on the trim at the bottom of the walls just from condensation. Well, that's a bit extreme. If you're seeing water dripping off your walls, you probably want to turn this thing off, or at least turn it down a few notches so it's not creating that much moisture. If that's going on, then you want to consider some other type of heating method or some type of ventilation system to help get rid of that. Well, thanks for watching Northern Homesteading. This is one more video for my Heating Your Homestead playlist. I hope you guys enjoyed this and found it useful. Click the like button if you feel so inclined, and check out the rest of those videos. There might be something else interesting and useful to you. Bye now.